The city bus lurched, a familiar groan of metal on metal as it rounded the corner onto Elmwood Drive. I gripped the worn strap of my cheap black coat, the fabric already pilling despite its recent purchase. Outside, the houses grew larger, their manicured lawns stretching like green carpets under the streetlights. Each one was a monument to old money, to names that meant something in this city. Names like Walker. Names like Hicks. And at the end of this street, the biggest monument of all. The mansion that used to be home. My name is Trinity. Trinity Walker. I'm 29 years old now, and 3 years ago I was cut off, disowned, and exiled from this very family. Not for anything scandalous, not in their eyes anyway. My crime? Refusing to marry a man I didn't love, a man chosen for me to solidify a business alliance. Refusing to join the family firm, despite years of studying law, because I saw the rot beneath the polished surface. They called it defiance. I called it self-preservation. They called it disgrace. I called it freedom. But freedom came with a price. Every penny I had, every connection, every promise. They used financial blackmail to try and coerce me, and when I still walked away, they made sure I walked away with nothing. Tonight, I was walking back in. Not as Trinity Walker, the disgraced daughter, but as Marisol, part of the catering staff for Gabriella's divorce party. Gabriella Hicks, my cousin, 31 years old, celebrating the end of her marriage to Kevin Mann with a lavish display of wealth. The irony wasn't lost on me. I stepped off the bus, the cold air biting at my cheeks, and adjusted the collar of my coat. My black uniform, ironed crisp, was underneath. The catering van was already parked discreetly down the street, and I joined the small group of staff heading towards the service entrance. No one gave me a second glance. I was just another anonymous face, hired help, easily dismissed. That was the point. Inside, the mansion buzzed with a manufactured cheer. Chandeliers glittered, reflecting off polished marble floors. Guests in designer clothes mingled, their laughter a little too loud, their smiles a little too wide. I moved through the crowd, a tray of champagne flutes in my hands, my movements practiced and smooth. My eyes, however, were anything but smooth. They scanned, they observed, they absorbed. Every familiar face, every snide remark, every forced compliment. The steel I'd forged over the last 3 years burned beneath my calm smiles. I spotted Gabriella almost immediately. She was a vision in a shimmering emerald green gown, her blonde hair perfectly coiffed. She looked triumphant, as if divorcing was an achievement rather than a failure. Her mother, my Aunt Lisa Hicks, 56 years old and looking every bit the status-obsessed matriarch she was, stood beside her, beaming. Lisa, who once at a charity gala had called me a mistake, loud enough for half the room to hear. I drifted closer, feigning interest in refilling a guest's glass, positioning myself just within earshot. Gabriella was talking animatedly, her voice carrying over the din. And honestly, Mom, the judge was a godsend. Kevin didn't stand a chance, Gabriella said, her tone smug. Lisa nodded, taking a sip of her champagne. Money well spent, darling. This party is spectacular, and that judge was very cooperative. Worth every penny, that one. My hand tightened on the tray. A judge, bribed, for custody. My blood ran cold, but my expression remained neutral. Gabriella leaned in conspiratorially, lowering her voice, but not quite enough. And the best part? Kevin has no idea about him, the new one. He's embarrassingly close to the family, actually. That's going to be a fun reveal, isn't it? She giggled, a high, tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. Embarrassingly close to the family. My mind immediately started cycling through possibilities, names and faces flashing through my thoughts. This wasn't just about Gabriella's divorce anymore. This was about something much deeper, something rotten at the core of their perfect facade. And I, Marisol, the hired help, was standing right in the middle of it. The revelation about the bribed judge hung in the air, a foul odor only I seemed to detect, and an affair, with someone embarrassingly close to the family. My mind raced, sifting through the faces in the room. Who could it be? A business partner? A distant cousin? The possibilities were endless, and each one felt like another layer of grime on the family's gilded facade. I moved through the opulent rooms, a phantom in black, refilling glasses, clearing empty plates. My ears were tuned, not to the clinking of crystal or the smooth jazz playing softly, but to the hushed conversations, the snippets of gossip. "And she's still trying to hide it, but I saw her at the clinic," a woman whispered to her companion near the grand staircase. "Definitely pregnant, and not Kevin's." My breath hitched. An unacknowledged pregnancy. This was getting richer by the minute. Gabriella, pregnant with someone else's child, while simultaneously divorcing Kevin and bribing a judge for custody. The audacity was breathtaking. I drifted towards a group of older men, their voices low and serious. One of them, a stout man I vaguely recognized as a family banker, was shaking his head. "Jason, I'm telling you, that second mortgage was a mistake, especially on this house. The market's not what it was, and if word gets out..." Jason Collins, my uncle, 55 years old and the current patriarch, chuckled, a dismissive sound. "Relax, Robert. It's all handled. Just a temporary measure. This house isn't going anywhere." A second mortgage. On this house. The house that had been promised to me. The house I'd spent my childhood dreaming of inheriting, of filling with my own life, my own choices. I remembered my father, Bryant, 59 now, telling me, "Trinity, this will all be yours one day. You'll be the one to carry on the family name here." He'd said it with such pride, such certainty. And then, when I refused to bend to their will, the house became a weapon. "If you walk away, you get nothing. Not a penny. Not this house. Nothing." The words had echoed in my ears for years, a constant reminder of their betrayal. They'd leveraged my future, my very home, to coerce me into a life I didn't want. And now they were leveraging it again, for their own secrets. I saw Riley then, my younger sister, 28 years old, standing by the fireplace, a delicate glass of champagne in her hand. She was talking to a cluster of older women, her smile bright, almost too bright. She looked perfect. The golden child. The one who had stayed, who had conformed, who was now reaping the rewards of their approval. She was glowing under their praise, a stark contrast to the ghost I'd become. Our eyes met across the room, just for a second. Her brow furrowed, a flicker of something unreadable in her gaze. Recognition? Doubt? She tilted her head slightly, as if trying to place me, then shook it off, turning back to the fawning women. She didn't know. Not yet. The pain of her not recognizing me was a dull ache, quickly overshadowed by the sharp edge of my purpose. I continued my rounds, collecting more fragments. The affair partner was definitely male. The pregnancy was recent. The mortgage was substantial. It was all a house of cards, built on lies and greed. As I moved towards the back of the house, near what used to be my father's study, I overheard Jason on the phone, his voice low but agitated. No, the paperwork is solid. We use that old firm, you know, the one Bryant used for the original transfer. They were discreet." And the lawyer, Henderson, he was already on his way out anyway. Said he was retiring, but we all know what that really meant. He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Cleaned up all our little messes before he vanished. My blood ran cold. Henderson. I knew that name. Arthur Henderson. He was a lawyer my father had used for years, a man who had indeed retired abruptly about 2 years ago amidst whispers of a scandal involving falsified documents and shady property deals. I'd followed the news briefly, even then, wondering if it had anything to do with my family, but I'd been too consumed with my own exile to dig deeper. The original transfer. Bryant. This house. It clicked into place with a sickening thud. The mansion wasn't just taken from me, it had been secured, transferred, leveraged, using forged documents. Documents handled by a lawyer my own father had hired, a man who then conveniently disappeared under a cloud of scandal. They hadn't just disinherited me, they had built their current empire on a foundation of fraud, using the very property they'd dangled in front of me as bait. The theft wasn't just emotional, it was literal. The clinking of glasses intensified, signaling a toast was imminent. I moved to the periphery of the main ballroom, blending into the shadows near a large potted palm. Gabriella, radiant and self-satisfied, tapped a champagne flute with a small silver spoon. The crowd quieted, anticipation thick in the air. "My dearest friends, family," she began, her voice clear and carrying, "thank you for celebrating with me tonight. This isn't just a party, it's a declaration that I am reclaiming my life, my strength, my spirit." She paused, letting the words hang, soaking in the admiring murmurs. The past few months have been challenging, a true test of resilience. But through it all, I found courage I never knew I possessed. I nearly choked on the air. Courage? Resilience? This was the woman who had just admitted to bribing a judge and was hiding an affair and a pregnancy. My fingers clenched around the edge of my tray. She continued, her voice dripping with carefully crafted pathos. "Some people, when faced with the truth, choose to lash out, to distort, to try and diminish you. But I refuse to be diminished." She gave a delicate, mournful sigh. "Kevin, bless his heart, simply couldn't handle the truth of my independence. He became difficult, unreasonable, and for the sake of my peace, for the sake of my future, I had to make the difficult choice to walk away." It was a masterclass in gaslighting. She was spinning a narrative so smooth, so convincing, it made my stomach churn. I remembered the whispers I'd caught earlier, the mention of faked abuse allegations. This was it. This was how they did it. Not with brute force, but with insidious public manipulation. She wasn't just throwing Kevin under the bus. She was backing over him repeatedly, with a smile. And Lisa, my aunt, stood beside her, nodding sagely, a picture of supportive motherhood. Lisa, who I knew had coached Gabriella through every step of this charade, probably even helped craft the lines. Just then, my Uncle Jason, 55, and looking every bit the ruthless patriarch, stepped away from a huddle of businessmen, pulling out his phone. He walked into a quieter alcove, his voice dropping, but still audible to my trained ears. "Yes, it's done. Kevin's neutralized. The media's eating up Gabriella's story, and his reputation is in tatters. He won't be a problem." A pause. "No, don't worry about that whistleblower. We'll handle them the same way." A little pressure, a few well-placed rumors, and their career will be over before it even starts. They'll regret ever crossing us. He chuckled, a cold, predatory sound that sent a shiver down my spine. My family. They were so casually horrific, neutralizing people, destroying lives, all to protect their image, their wealth, their carefully constructed facade of respectability. And the worst part? No one here suspected a thing. They were all captivated by Gabriella's performance, sipping their expensive champagne, completely oblivious to the rot beneath the surface. Their outward image remained golden, untarnished, while they plotted ruin for anyone who stood in their way. It was a sickening display of power and privilege, and it made the bile rise in my throat. I felt a surge of despair, a familiar ache of helplessness that had haunted me after my own exile. How could I fight this? How could one person expose such a deeply entrenched web of deceit? But then, the anger flared, hotter and sharper than the despair. No, I wouldn't let them win. Not this time. I remembered the unlocked tablet I'd seen earlier, sitting on a side table in Lisa's study, just off the main hall. Lisa, with her obsession for documenting everything, for keeping meticulous records of her social triumphs and petty grievances. It was a long shot, but worth a try. I excused myself from my serving duties, claiming a need to fetch more ice from the kitchen. Instead, I veered off, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The study door was ajar. I slipped inside, my movements silent, my eyes scanning the room. There it was, on a small antique desk, Lisa's tablet, its screen still faintly glowing. I moved quickly, my fingers flying across the screen. No password. Of course not. Lisa was too arrogant, too convinced of her own untouchability. I navigated to her email, my breath held. And there they were. A chain of emails between Lisa and a contact named JD, discussing expediting Gabriella's custody case, detailing specific amounts, and mentioning Judge Davies's cooperation. Proof. Cold, hard proof. My phone was in my uniform pocket. With trembling fingers, I opened the camera, angled it carefully, and snapped multiple screenshots of the incriminating emails. The flash was off, the room dimly lit. Each click was a small victory, a piece of their carefully guarded empire crumbling. I deleted the photos from my phone's gallery immediately after transferring them to a secure encrypted folder, leaving no trace. I slipped out of the study as silently as I'd entered, my heart still racing, but a grim satisfaction settling over me. The despair was gone, replaced by a cold, resolute focus. I had the proof, and this was just the beginning. The high of getting those screenshots was a potent fuel. My heart was still thrumming, but the despair I'd felt earlier had completely evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I had proof. Now, I needed to deploy it. I found a quiet corner in the staff pantry, away from the chatter and the watchful eyes. My phone was already connected to the mansion's guest Wi-Fi, another small detail I'd planned for. Quickly, efficiently, I drafted an email. No sender name, no identifying information. Just the attached screenshots of Lisa's damning emails, along with a brief anonymous tip about a bribed judge and fabricated abuse allegations in the Gabriella Hicks divorce case. I sent it to 3 major local news outlets, the ones known for their investigative reporting. Then, a separate email, equally anonymous, to Kevin Mann's known legal counsel, attaching the same evidence. He deserved to know. He deserved a chance to fight back. While those emails were winging their way into the digital ether, I continued my work, but with a new objective. Every time I passed a group of particularly boisterous or self-important guests, my phone, held low and discreetly in my hand, would click. A prominent city councilman, clearly too drunk, slurring insults at a junior aide. A renowned philanthropist, caught in a passionate embrace with someone who was definitely not his wife. A judge, not Judge Davies, but another one I recognized from my brief stint in law school, openly discussing a shady land deal, my gallery filled with their carefully hidden indiscretions. These weren't for public consumption yet, but they were insurance, leverage, just in case. I was heading back to the kitchen to grab another tray of canapés when I heard it, a choked sob from a dimly lit hallway off the main living area. It was Riley. My sister, 28 years old, usually so composed, so perfect. She was huddled against the wall, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking. I can't believe he said that, she whispered, her voice thick with tears. After everything. All these years. I paused, my serving duties momentarily forgotten. I couldn't see who she was talking to, but I could hear another voice, low and dismissive. It was Bryant, our father. 59 years old, and still capable of inflicting the deepest cuts. Honestly, Riley, I don't know why you're so upset. Bryant's voice drifted, cold and unfeeling. You're the one who stayed. You're the one who understood what it takes to be a walker. I have one heir, Riley. One. And that's you. The other? The other was a mistake. A regrettable detour. My blood ran cold. A mistake. A regrettable detour. That was me. That was how my own father saw me. The pain was sharp, familiar, but it twisted my gut to hear him say it about his own daughter, even if it wasn't directly to my face. And to hear Riley, the golden child, so utterly broken by his words, was a shock. She had always seemed immune to his cruelty, thriving under his approval. I couldn't help myself. I approached her. My voice softened, adopting a slightly deeper, more comforting tone than my usual Marisol persona. "Are you all right, ma'am?" I asked, my face carefully neutral, my eyes full of a sympathy I genuinely felt. Riley looked up, her eyes red-rimmed, but she didn't seem to truly see me, just the anonymous server offering comfort. "No," she choked out, wiping her eyes. "It's just... my father. He's always been so hard. But to say something like that..." She trailed off, shaking her head. Sometimes I just wish Trinity were here. She always knew how to stand up to him. She wouldn't let him get away with it. My heart ached. For a fleeting moment, the carefully constructed walls around my anger softened. Riley, my little sister. She missed me. She needed me. Was this revenge worth hurting her too? Was it worth dragging her through the mud with the rest of them, even if she was complicit by association? The thought was a raw wound. I'd come here for justice, for myself, but seeing her so broken, so vulnerable, made me question everything. I reached out, a purely instinctual gesture, and gently placed a hand on her arm. "I'm sorry," I murmured, my voice low and genuine. "Families can be complicated." As my hand touched her, the sleeve of my uniform shifted slightly. Riley's gaze, still blurry with tears, drifted down. Her eyes widened, her breath hitched. On my inner left wrist, just above the cuff of my uniform, was a small, delicate tattoo. A single, intertwined knot of 3 Celtic spirals. A symbol of sisterhood. Riley had the exact same one, a matching tattoo we'd gotten on her 18th birthday. A secret rebellion against our family's rigid expectations. Her eyes snapped up to mine, suddenly clear, suddenly piercing. The vague recognition from earlier solidified into dawning horror. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She knew. I pulled my hand back slowly, my heart pounding a different rhythm now. One of exposure, not just discovery. I gave her a small, almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving her frozen in the hallway. I didn't look back, but I knew what she was doing when I heard the faint buzz of a phone. Riley, standing alone in the hallway, her face pale, quickly pulled out her phone. Her fingers flew across the screen, a message drafted in a frantic blur. "I know who she is. What do I do?" I didn't have to wait long. I was restocking the bar with fresh ice, my back to the main ballroom, when a shadow fell over me. I knew it was her before I even turned around. The scent of her expensive perfume, the slight tremor in the air. "Trinity," Riley whispered, her voice tight, barely audible over the distant hum of conversation. "What are you doing here?" I turned slowly, facing her. Her eyes, still red-rimmed from crying, were now wide with a mixture of shock and accusation. We were in the pantry, a narrow space filled with stacked crates and the low hum of refrigerators. It was the only place we could talk without being overheard. "Working," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Like I've been doing for the last 3 years, ever since this family decided I wasn't worth anything." Her jaw tightened. Don't say that. You know it's not true. Dad was just. He was angry. You walked away from everything. Walked away? I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Or was I pushed? Let's be clear, Riley. I was given an ultimatum: marry Leandro Swanson, a man I barely knew, for a power alliance that would benefit Uncle Jason's company, or be cut off. Disowned. Stripped of everything. Even my law school tuition, which they suddenly couldn't afford anymore. They didn't just cut me off. They tried to financially blackmail me into a life I didn't want. And when that didn't work, they made sure I had nothing. No inheritance, no connections, no support. Nothing. I watched her face, searching for a flicker of understanding, a hint of the sister I once knew. She looked away, her gaze fixed on a stack of linen napkins. It wasn't like that, she mumbled, but her voice lacked conviction. Wasn't it? I pressed, stepping closer. You were there, Riley. You saw it. You saw how they treated me, how they leveraged every single thing against me. You saw Dad stand by and let it happen. Let them call me a mistake for daring to choose my own path. The words from earlier, his cruel dismissal, still stung. You heard him just now, didn't you? He still thinks I'm a mistake, that you're his one heir. You think that's fair? She flinched, her shoulders slumping. I didn't know it was that bad. I thought you just left to spite them. Spite them? I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. I left to survive. To build something for myself, without their dirty money or their twisted expectations. And I did. I became a freelance investigator. I learned how to dig, how to find things people want to keep buried. I paused, letting that sink in. Which brings me to why I'm here tonight. Riley's eyes snapped back to mine, fear dawning in them. What have you done? It's not what I've done, Riley. It's what they've done, I corrected, my voice dropping to a low, intense whisper. Gabriella bribed a judge to fast-track her custody case using fake abuse allegations. She's pregnant, by someone embarrassingly close to the family. This mansion, the one they promised me, the one they used to blackmail me, was secured with forged documents, and your precious father, Bryant, hired the lawyer who did it, a man who conveniently retired under scandal right after. Her face went ashen. She took a step back, bumping into a shelf of glassware. No, you're lying. They wouldn't. They would. They did, I stated, my voice unwavering. I have proof. Screenshots of emails between Lisa and her contact detailing the bribe. I've already sent them. To news outlets. To Kevin's lawyer. Riley gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. You sent them? To the news? Trinity, you have to leave. Now! Before they find out who you are, before it's too late. She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. Please, just go. You'll ruin everything. You'll ruin us. I shook my head slowly, a grim smile touching my lips. It's already too late, Riley. The emails are out. And Kevin? He's already replied. He's willing to come forward. He's been waiting for something like this. Her grip on my arm loosened. She stared at me, her eyes wide, torn. The perfect golden child, caught between the family she'd always tried to please, and the brutal truth I was laying bare. I saw the struggle in her eyes, the years of conditioning warring with the sudden, undeniable weight of reality. She was wavering, finally seeing the cracks in their perfect facade. Just then, the pantry door swung open slightly. I heard Gabriella's voice, sharp and annoyed, from the hallway. Riley, what are you doing in here? You've been acting twitchy all night. And where's that new server? Marisol, I think. Mom, go check the staff. I have a bad feeling about one of them. My eyes met Riley's. Her face was a mask of terror. The game was almost up. They were coming for me. I didn't have to wait long. I was restocking the bar with fresh ice, my back to the main ballroom, when a shadow fell over me. I knew it was her before I even turned around. The scent of her expensive perfume, the slight tremor in the air. "Trinity," Riley whispered, her voice tight, barely audible over the distant hum of conversation. "What are you doing here?" I turned slowly, facing her. Her eyes, still red-rimmed from crying, were now wide with a mixture of shock and accusation. We were in the pantry, a narrow space filled with stacked crates and the low hum of refrigerators. It was the only place we could talk without being overheard. "Working," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Like I've been doing for the last 3 years, ever since this family decided I wasn't worth anything." Her jaw tightened. "Don't say that. You know it's not true. Dad was he was angry. You walked away from everything." "Walked away?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "Or was I pushed?" "Let's be clear, Riley. I was given an ultimatum. Marry Leandro Swanson, a man I barely knew, for a power alliance that would benefit Uncle Jason's company, or be cut off, disowned, stripped of everything. Even my law school tuition, which they suddenly couldn't afford anymore. They didn't just cut me off, they tried to financially blackmail me into a life I didn't want. And when that didn't work, they made sure I had nothing. No inheritance, no connections, no support. Nothing." I watched her face, searching for a flicker of understanding, a hint of the sister I once knew. She looked away, her gaze fixed on a stack of linen napkins. "It wasn't like that," she mumbled, but her voice lacked conviction. "Wasn't it?" I pressed, stepping closer. "You were there, Riley. You saw it. You saw how they treated me, how they leveraged every single thing against me. You saw Dad stand by and let it happen, let them call me a mistake for daring to choose my own path." The words from earlier, his cruel dismissal, still stung. "You heard him just now, didn't you? He still thinks I'm a mistake, that you're his one heir. You think that's fair?" She flinched, her shoulders slumping. I didn't know it was that bad. I thought you just left." "To spite them." "Spite them?" I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "I left to survive, to build something for myself, without their dirty money or their twisted expectations. And I did. I became a freelance investigator. I learned how to dig, how to find things people want to keep buried." I paused, letting that sink in. "Which brings me to why I'm here tonight." Riley's eyes snapped back to mine, fear dawning in them. "What have you done?" "It's not what I've done, Riley, it's what they've done," I corrected, my voice dropping to a low, intense whisper. "Gabriella bribed a judge to fast-track her custody case, using fake abuse allegations. She's pregnant by someone embarrassingly close to the family. This mansion, the one they promised me, the one they used to blackmail me, was secured with forged documents. And your precious father, Bryant, hired the lawyer who did it, a man who conveniently retired under scandal right after." Her face went ashen. She took a step back, bumping into a shelf of glassware. "No, you're lying. They wouldn't." "They would. They did," I stated, my voice unwavering. "I have proof. Screenshots of emails between Lisa and her contact detailing the bribe. I've already sent them. To news outlets. To Kevin's lawyer." Riley gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "You sent them? To the news? Trinity, you have to leave. Now! Before they find out who you are. Before it's too late." She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. "Please, just go. You'll ruin everything. You'll ruin us." I shook my head slowly, a grim smile touching my lips. "It's already too late, Riley. The emails are out. And Kevin? He's already replied. He's willing to come forward. He's been waiting for something like this." Her grip on my arm loosened. She stared at me, her eyes wide, torn. The perfect golden child, caught between the family she'd always tried to please and the brutal truth I was laying bare. I saw the struggle in her eyes, the years of conditioning warring with the sudden, undeniable weight of reality. She was wavering, finally seeing the cracks in their perfect facade. Just then, the pantry door swung open slightly. I heard Gabriella's voice, sharp and annoyed, from the hallway. "Riley, what are you doing in here?" "You've been acting twitchy all night. And where's that new server? Marisol, I think. Mom, go check the staff. I have a bad feeling about one of them." My eyes met Riley's. Her face was a mask of terror. The game was almost up. They were coming for me. The pantry door swung open fully, revealing Lisa, her eyes narrowed, scanning the room. "Marisol? Is that you?" she barked, her voice sharp. "Gabriella said you were acting suspicious." "And where's Riley?" Riley, still pale, quickly stepped away from me, trying to compose herself. "I was just helping Marisol find something, Mom," she stammered, her voice thin. I met Lisa's gaze, my expression unreadable. "Just getting more ice, ma'am," I said, my voice calm, the perfect deferential server. Lisa's eyes lingered on me, a flicker of something unidentifiable in their depths. She didn't recognize me, not truly, but the suspicion was there, a cold tendril of doubt. "All right, well, hurry it up. We're about to do the main toast, and make sure you're ready to serve. Don't want any hiccups." Her emphasis on the last word was pointed. She turned, pulling Riley by the arm. "Come on, darling, let's get you back out there." As they walked away, I heard Lisa's hushed voice. "That girl. Something about her. Did you check her references, Gabriella? I told you to be thorough with the temporary staff." My blood ran cold. They hadn't identified me yet, but they were close. The net was tightening. My original plan had been to slip away after sending the emails and collecting the evidence, to let the chaos unfold from a safe distance. But now, with their suspicion aroused, slipping away quietly might not be an option. And even if it was, it felt incomplete. They needed to know who had done this. They needed to remember me. A new, bolder plan crystallized in my mind. A final, decisive strike. I moved with purpose. The main toast. The grand finale of Gabriella's self-congratulatory evening. The champagne for the toast was usually kept chilled in large silver buckets near the main serving station, ready to be poured into the flutes. As catering staff, I had access. I made my way to the station, my heart thrumming with a fierce, exhilarating beat. There were several bottles of the expensive vintage champagne, already uncorked and waiting. My eyes scanned the area. A small, unused service cart was tucked away behind a decorative screen. Perfect. Working quickly, my movements precise and practiced, I began my switch. I had anticipated a need for a dramatic flourish, though not quite like this. In my oversized coat, I'd smuggled in 2 bottles of the cheapest, most acrid sparkling wine I could find at a discount store, along with a small, clear vial of food-grade bitter extract. My original thought was to just make a few glasses taste bad, but now the scale had to be grander. I discreetly swapped out 4 of the 6 expensive champagne bottles with my cheap, bitter substitutes. For the remaining 2 expensive bottles, I poured a tiny amount of the bitter extract into each, just enough to taint the taste without being immediately obvious as a foreign substance. My own glass, and one I intended for Riley, would be filled from a hidden, untainted bottle I'd kept separate. The outline said, "Only a few glasses are real." This was it. The majority would be a bitter, unpleasant surprise. I finished just as Jason's booming voice cut through the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?" The crowd hushed, turning towards the elevated platform, where Jason, Gabriella, and Lisa stood, beaming. Jason, my uncle, 55, patriarch, the man who had orchestrated my downfall. Tonight, we celebrate not just a divorce, but a triumph. Jason announced, raising his own glass. A triumph of spirit, of resilience, of family. He paused for effect. And now I'd like to pass the mic to the woman of the hour, my incredible niece, Gabriella. He handed the microphone to Gabriella, who took it with a flourish, her smile radiating smug self-satisfaction. This was it. My window. I grabbed a tray of champagne flutes, already filled with the tainted bubbly, and walked towards the platform. My heart hammered. A frantic drum against my ribs. This was it. No turning back. As I reached the edge of the platform, just below Gabriella, I feigned a stumble. My foot caught on an invisible seam in the rug. The tray tilted precariously. Glasses clinked, some nearly falling. "Oh! Oh, my apologies!" I exclaimed, my voice pitched high, playing the part of the flustered server. I dropped the tray, letting it clatter loudly on the marble floor, a few glasses shattering. The sudden noise cut through the expectant silence. Everyone turned to look. Gabriella frowned, annoyed. Jason looked irritated. "I am so terribly sorry," I said, bending down. But instead of picking up the broken glass, my hand shot out. In one swift, practiced motion, I snatched the microphone from Gabriella's hand. Gabriella gasped, her eyes widening in shock. "Hey! What do you think you're doing?" I straightened up, the microphone clutched in my hand. The crowd was silent, staring. A few guests looked confused, others annoyed. But then a ripple went through the room. Faces started to shift. Eyes narrowed, heads tilted. They were looking at me. Really looking. Not at Marisol, the anonymous server, but at the woman beneath the uniform. The woman they'd exiled. Gabriella, her initial shock giving way to a sneer, waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, for heaven's sake, just apologize and get out of the way, Marisol. We're waiting." She clearly thought I was just some clumsy, overly dramatic help. She allowed it smugly. But the murmurs were growing louder. "She looks familiar. Isn't that—" I took a deep breath, the microphone feeling strangely heavy, yet powerful, in my hand. I looked out at their faces, the faces of my family, their friends, their enablers. The faces of the people who had cast me out, who had built their empire on lies and betrayal. My voice, when I spoke, was no longer the deferential whisper of Marisol. It was clear, strong, and laced with a cold, cutting edge. "Before I pour this overpriced champagne," I said, my gaze sweeping across the stunned faces, "does anyone want to hear how much it costs to crush a man's life for a hashtag?" The microphone felt like a weapon, heavy and cold in my hand. The hum of the ballroom, moments ago a dull background drone, had vanished, replaced by a suffocating silence. Every eye in the room was on me, not the server, but the woman who had just dared to speak. I let the silence stretch, letting the recognition fully sink in. Then, I dropped the server act entirely. My shoulders straightened, my chin lifted. The deferential posture of Marisol melted away, replaced by the coiled tension of Trinity Walker. "My name is Trinity," I said, my voice clear and strong, cutting through the thick air. "Trinity Walker, and for those of you who don't remember, I'm the daughter this family disowned 3 years ago for daring to have a mind of my own." A collective gasp swept through the room. One woman, her hand flying to her mouth, fumbled for her phone. Another, already holding hers, started recording. The whispers erupted, a frantic buzz of recognition and disbelief. Jason's face, usually so composed, contorted into a mask of pure rage. Lisa's eyes, wide with horror, were fixed on me. Gabriella just stared, her mouth agape. "You're celebrating a triumph tonight, Gabriella," I continued, my voice gaining momentum, each word a deliberate strike. "A triumph of courage, you called it, but let's talk about the real cost of that triumph, shall we?" I didn't rush. I let the facts land, one by one, like carefully aimed blows. You told everyone Kevin Mann was difficult, that he couldn't handle your independence. What you didn't tell them was that you fabricated abuse allegations to fast-track your divorce and secure his assets. You didn't tell them that your mother, Lisa Hicks, orchestrated the whole thing, bribing a family court judge, Judge Davies, for those taking notes, to ensure a favorable outcome. Lisa let out a strangled sound, her hand clutching her chest. Jason took a step forward, his face purpling. You talked about reclaiming your life, I pressed on, ignoring them, my gaze sweeping across the stunned faces of the guests. But you're reclaiming it on a foundation of lies. And speaking of lies, let's not forget the unacknowledged pregnancy, Gabriella. And the father? Someone embarrassingly close to the family, you said. Perhaps Athena Edwards could shed some light on that, considering she's been seen leaving your guest house at dawn for the past month. A ripple of shock went through the crowd. Athena Edwards, a prominent socialite, standing frozen by the buffet table, her face draining of color. Her husband, standing beside her, looked like he'd been punched. And while we're exposing family secrets, I continued, my voice unwavering, let's talk about this mansion. The one that was supposedly mine, then leveraged against me, then stolen outright. This house wasn't just taken from me, it was secured using forged documents. Documents handled by a lawyer my father, Bryant Walker, hired, Arthur Henderson, who then conveniently retired under a cloud of scandal, cleaning up all their little messes before he vanished. Bryant, who had been standing near the back, suddenly looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. My uncle, Jason Collins, talks about neutralizing people. Kevin was just the first. He's already planning to do the same to a whistleblower in his company, casually destroying lives to protect his precious reputation. I paused, letting the full weight of their depravity settle over the room. This isn't a family, ladies and gentlemen. It's a syndicate, built on cruelty, manipulation, and the systematic betrayal of anyone who stands in their way. Even their own blood. My eyes found Riley, standing pale and trembling near the fireplace. She was crying silently, but this time her tears seemed to be for the truth, not for her father's cruelty. And for her sake, I said, my voice softening slightly as I pointed at Riley. I hope she chooses to be better. I hope she chooses to break free from this toxic legacy. The dam broke. Lisa Hicks, her face ashen, let out a low moan and collapsed onto the floor. A few guests rushed to her side. Gabriella, her face contorted with pure, unadulterated fury, grabbed a champagne flute from a passing tray, one of the few real ones, and hurled it at me. It shattered against the wall behind my head, spraying me with expensive bubbly. "You bitch!" she shrieked, her carefully constructed glamour dissolving into raw, ugly rage. "How dare you!" Jason, recovering from his shock, bellowed, "Security! Get her out of here!" "Now!" But before the security guards could move, several guests, their faces a mixture of horror and fascination, stepped forward, forming an impromptu barrier between me and the guards. "Hold on!" one man shouted, his phone still recording. "Let her speak." Another woman, her eyes wide, said, "This is unbelievable." My phone, still in my pocket, vibrated once, then twice, then a flurry of times. I knew what it was. The news outlets. Kevin. The fallout had begun. Instantly. 4 phones around the room, belonging to prominent guests, started lighting up, their contacts demanding explanations. The carefully constructed world of the Walkers and the Hicks was imploding, live and in real time. And then, the front doors of the mansion swung open. All heads turned. Standing in the doorway, framed against the night, was Kevin Mann. He looked tired, but resolute. His eyes found mine, and he gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Everything she just said," Kevin stated, his voice clear and steady, cutting through the chaos, "is true, and I have the evidence to prove it." The mansion gates were a circus. Blue and red lights pulsed against the night, painting the manicured lawns in an eerie, shifting glow. Police cruisers lined the drive, their presence a stark contrast to the usual fleet of luxury cars. Reporters, a hungry pack, swarmed the perimeter, microphones thrust towards anyone who dared to emerge. The story was out. It had exploded faster than even I had anticipated, fueled by the anonymous tips, Kevin's testimony, and the sheer audacity of the public confrontation. Inside, the chaos continued. I'd slipped out through a side door, leaving the wreckage behind. I heard sirens wailing in the distance, closer now. The sound was music to my ears. The next few days were a blur of headlines. Socialite's divorce party explodes in scandal. Bribery, forgery, and affair allegations rock elite family. Prominent patriarch Jason Collins under investigation for business practices. Judge Davies suspended amidst bribery claims. Sponsors pulled out of Jason's investment firm faster than he could issue denials. Gabriella's meticulously crafted public image shattered into a million pieces. Her custody case, already under a cloud, was reopened for fraud, with Kevin's lawyer already filing motions to reverse the previous ruling. Lisa, I heard, was under doctor's care for stress-related issues, which I knew was code for public humiliation. Athena Edwards's affair was front-page news in the society columns, her marriage reportedly in tatters. The house of cards had not just fallen, it had imploded. Weeks later, the initial media frenzy had died down, but the consequences hadn't. My small apartment, a modest space I'd carved out for myself in a quiet part of the city, felt like a sanctuary. The contrast to the mansion was stark, but here, I was free. There was a hesitant knock on my door. I opened it to find Riley standing there, looking smaller, quieter than I'd ever seen her. Her designer clothes were still impeccable, but her eyes held a weariness that went beyond a few sleepless nights. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice soft. I hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside. She walked in, looking around my sparse living room, a faint frown on her face. It wasn't judgment, just unfamiliarity. "Coffee?" I offered, moving towards my small kitchen. "Please," she said, sinking onto my worn sofa. We sat in silence for a few minutes, sipping the lukewarm coffee from mismatched mugs. The quiet was heavy, filled with unspoken words. Finally, Riley broke it. "I left the company," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Jason's firm. I resigned last week." My gaze sharpened. "Why?" She looked down at her hands, twisting the mug. Because I couldn't pretend anymore. After everything you said, everything that came out, I saw it. I saw them. All the things I'd ignored. All the excuses I'd made. Dad. He hasn't spoken to me since that night. He's furious. Says I should have stopped you." She looked up, a flicker of defiance in her eyes. "But I don't think I wanted to." "Not really." A cautious hope stirred within me. This was the Riley I'd always wished she could be. "What will you do?" She shrugged, a small, uncertain gesture. "I don't know. Something different. Something real. Maybe I'll go back to school. I always wanted to study art history, you know? Before Dad convinced me it was a frivolous pursuit." She gave a weak, watery smile. "Anyway, I wanted to say thank you, and I'm sorry, for not seeing it sooner." "For not standing up for you." I nodded slowly. "It's okay, Riley. You're here now." It wasn't a full embrace, not yet. Too much history, too much pain. But it was a start, a cautious, fragile truce. Karma. It's a funny thing. People talk about it like some distant, ethereal force. But I'd seen it up close, in the flashing lights and the screaming headlines. It didn't just strike back, it bit hard. It bit Jason's business, Gabriella's reputation, Lisa's social standing. It bit Bryant's pride. I didn't get the mansion back. I didn't get the inheritance they'd stolen. But I got something more valuable. I got my spine back, the one they tried to break. I got my name back, not as the disgraced daughter, but as the one who finally brought their empire crashing down. And I made them remember. Not just me, but the truth they tried to bury. I went in with a tray and a name tag. I walked out with justice. The rest? They'll be serving their own consequences for years to come.